Prince Harry is set to testify today, one day earlier than planned, in his case against the Daily Mail, who are accused of illegal information gathering.
We've gone from the Duchess of Sussex to somebody, and people laugh at me, who makes and markets jam, for Christ's sake.
If this once this is over, does this sort of pave the way for sort of a bit of a rapprochement? Because basically he's been at war with all of the British media, hasn't he?
Even if he has perjured himself, there are unlikely to be consequences.
This all happened before he met Meghan, but I disagree. I would think she would be, Meghan, who's all about PR and how she appears, I think she'd be pretty annoyed.
I mean, they were attending the same parties. Well, he was attending a party with a journalist who was working as a royal correspondent at the time at the Daily Mail.
Meghan Markle, he says that the UK tabloids made Meghan Markle's life an absolute misery. Associated newspapers.
And the British monarchy is so frustrated. I mean, you know, the king's had enough of his deranged son.
The Duke of Sussex ended the day on an emotional note, as you say, his voice absolutely breaking.
But here today, he is finding out just how hard Associated Newspapers is prepared to fight to defend its reputation.
It's amazing that an image can say so much. It's also, I don't think unfair to say, absolutely absurd.
They were merely speaking to people who were leaking from within Harry's close circle.
He couldn't control his own narrative in the way that he's got used to. The result then is an emotional prince, a bit of a wobble of the bottom lip and an insistence.
He also became visibly upset, some said to the point of tears, when speaking about Meghan Markle.
The messages were never supposed to be public. They were private, old, written more than a decade before anyone outside a London courtroom would ever think to care about them. But in early April 2026, they became the most talked about texts in the British press. And the reason they hit so hard, the reason they spread so fast, had nothing to do with what Harry wrote. It had everything to do with how Meghan reacted. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives. Royal correspondent and Daily Mail diary editor Richard Eden has covered the Sussex story longer than most. He has watched this marriage from the inside out. The exits, the interviews, the lawsuits, the reinventions. And when the Charlotte Griffiths messages surfaced in London's High Court, Eden called it publicly, plainly, and without softening it. This, he said, would be deeply painful for Prince Harry. Not embarrassing, not awkward, painful. That word choice matters. Because Eden wasn't just talking about the legal case, he was talking about what happens behind closed doors in Montecito when a woman like Meghan Markle reads about her husband calling another woman sugar and signing off with kisses. Here's the background, because context is everything. Harry has spent years and millions pursuing a privacy lawsuit against Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday. His central argument has been that journalists at those outlets obtain private information through unlawful means.
The Duke of Sussex alleges that the Daily Mirror spied on him illegally.
Phone tapping, private investigators, sources they should never have had. It was a bold case, a personal one. And then, in the closing weeks of trial testimony in March 2026, something unexpected surfaced in evidence. Facebook messages, sent by Harry himself, to a Mail on Sunday journalist named Charlotte Griffiths. The messages dated back to December 2011 and January 2012, years before Harry met Meghan, years before Suits, years before any of this. And they were warm, very warm. Harry called Griffiths sugar. He signed off with moi, XXXX. He wrote that he missed their movie snuggles. The British press stopped everything. Now, and to be precise about what these messages were and weren't, there was no suggestion of anything improper. The exchange predated Meghan entirely. Harry was single. Griffiths was a journalist moving in the same social circles. They met at a country house party hosted by mutual friend Arthur Landon. They traded messages for about a month. That's it. But here's what stopped the story from being dismissed. Harry had told the court, under oath, that he had met Griffiths only once, that he had no ongoing contact with her, that he cut off communication the moment he learned she was a journalist. That was that, he told the judge. Except It wasn't.
He also did not cut off contact with her when he said he did. So his argument's been completely blown out the water.
The messages were right there. The warmth was right there. The pet names were right there. And the timeline didn't match what Harry had described at all. That's where things stopped making sense. For Meghan, the legal contradiction may have been secondary. What sources described, across multiple outlets including Radar Online, Star Magazine, and OK, was a woman processing something more personal than a court filing. According to those reports, Meghan was shocked. Not mildly surprised, shocked. She wanted to know the full story. She wanted to understand the precise nature of the relationship. She was described in one widely cited account as humiliated, blindsided by a version of Harry she had never seen. "What else is he hiding?" one source claimed she asked. 3 words. And they said, everything. That question, what else is he hiding, is the one Richard Eden and other royal observers have been circling ever since, because it reveals something about this marriage that the Sussex public narrative has never quite addressed. Meghan didn't just marry Harry. She married a story about him, the story of a man who was hunted by the press, misrepresented, betrayed by the very institution that was supposed to protect him. A man who had been wounded, yes, but who had emerged honest, self-aware, and devoted. That story is the architecture of everything they built together. The Netflix documentary, the Spotify deal, the memoir, the interviews, the advocacy work, all of it rests on a version of Harry that is transparent, knowable, safe. And then a set of Facebook messages from 2011 landed in a London courtroom. And suddenly, observers were asking whether the man Meghan thought she knew was the complete picture. Here's what's raising eyebrows in royal circles. It isn't the messages themselves. Most reasonable people have accepted that a single man in his late 20s exchanged flirty texts with someone he met at a party. What's generating the commentary, the kind Eden has been navigating carefully for weeks, is the gap between Harry's public self-presentation and what the evidence shows. Harry didn't just say he barely knew Griffiths. He said it in a courtroom, as part of a case built on the premise that journalists had no legitimate access to his world, no real connections, no willing sources. The messages suggested otherwise. And if Harry was willing to understate a friendship with a journalist in court, even one that was innocent, what does that say about the broader account he has given of his years in the royal family? That is the question that won't go away. Sources close to the couple pushed back almost immediately. Harry's team told outlets that Griffiths never disclosed she was a journalist at the time of their exchange, and that the messages, taken in full context, proved only that she had been deceptive, not that Harry had been dishonest. The couple's official representatives denied reports of any marriage strain entirely, but the denials arrived into a media environment that had already moved on. Online, the reaction had crystallized fast. Across social media and royal commentary platforms, one observation kept surfacing, that the woman described as humiliated and asking, "What else is he hiding?" was not reacting like someone who felt secure. She was reacting like someone recalibrating. And this is where the story takes a turn that goes beyond gossip. Because Meghan Markle is not a passive figure in this marriage. She never has been. Since the couple's departure from royal life in 2020, it has been Meghan, not Harry, who has driven the brand, the fashion partnerships, the lifestyle content, the television projects, the carefully curated public image of a woman who left a toxic institution and built something better on the other side. Harry has been present in that story, but increasingly, observers note he has been present on her terms. Reports in the months leading into the Griffiths revelation had already described 2 people pulling in subtly different directions. Harry, sources suggested, had grown quietly disillusioned with Hollywood. He carried, in the words of one insider, a deeply ingrained sense of responsibility toward his family and the monarchy, even as reconciliation remained complicated. Meghan, by contrast, had doubled down. More solo appearances, more brand-forward events, more visibility on her own. The Griffiths' messages didn't create that tension, but they landed directly into it. Richard Eden has covered enough royal marriages to know what pressure looks like up close. He watched the Wales marriage fracture in real time. He observed the Charles and Diana collapse from inside the press corps that chronicled it. He has spent years tracking what happens when the public version of a royal relationship diverges from the private reality. What he identified in the Griffiths episode, that quality he called deeply painful, was not about infidelity. It was not about scandal in the traditional sense. It was about exposure. Harry went to court to protect his privacy, and in doing so, he inadvertently exposed a version of himself that contradicted the one he had spent years carefully constructing. A version that was looser, warmer, more socially entangled with the press than his entire legal case had claimed. That version landed on Meghan's doorstep whether she wanted it or not. The trial has now concluded. Judge Matthew Nicklin has reserved his judgment, meaning the legal outcome remains pending. What isn't pending is the conversation the messages set off, about a marriage under sustained structural pressure, about a man whose public identity rests on a narrative that the courtroom complicated, about a woman whose reaction, described by multiple sources as visceral, hurt, and probing, suggests the gap between what she knew and what the world now knows may be wider than anyone inside that Montecito house had prepared for. A lot of people are now asking, one source said, if this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Maybe it won't be. Couples absorb crises, narratives get managed, representatives issue denials, and the news cycle moves on. But the question Meghan reportedly asked, quietly, in private, after reading about sugar and movie snuggles and strings of kisses sent to a mail on Sunday Journalist, that question doesn't get managed away. What else is he hiding? Richard Eden didn't need to answer it. He just needed to say it would be deeply painful. And it was. If this story made you stop and think, you already know what to do. Subscribe to Royal Archives for the coverage that goes past the headlines. The judgment in Harry's case is still coming. And when it does, the implications for this marriage and for everything the Sussexes have built may be far larger than a set of old Facebook messages ever suggested. The story isn't over. It's just getting to the part that matters.